Hey folks, Jones here. Got another rope cut test for you today. Today we're going to be using an MTech holder. I've had this probably 7-8 years, so I really don't know what the model number is, but it features MTech's 440 mystery steel, which is most likely 440A. MTech is probably one of the most hated knife manufacturers in the business. Number one, for their immoral business practices, and number two, because a lot of people think that they just produce shitty knives. Well, that second factor is debatable. I've got one or two MTechs over the years that were crap, but I'd say 90% of the ones that I bought years ago were actually of decent quality. So we're going to be testing the edge retention of this today. Same basic format as J. Davis 882's rope cut edge retention tests, except I've replaced, he uses a hardwood cutting board. I'm using a 2x4, which is a much softer wood, which will eliminate the variable of testing for toughness out of this test, because if you have a hardwood cutting board, when the blade hits it, it can cause plastic deformation, roll your edge, stuff like that because it's so hard. This is soft, so we really should be testing only for abrasion resistance at this point. So initial sharpness, it is hair whittling sharp. Sharpened to approximately 14 degrees per side. And the blade thickness right behind the edge is 0.8 millimeters, which is about twice as thick as most of my folders. But with that edge on there, it still cuts great. I guarantee most of you are going to be surprised by this test. I've done this before, and well, I won't spoil it for you. I'll just get started. Alright, first few cuts are done. Visual inspection of the edge, and there appears to be absolutely no damage or deformation at all. Still feels sticky sharp, which is what we like. Still push cuts. So let's continue. I didn't mention this before, but the rope I'm using is 3 foot of 3/4 inch sisal rope, unwound into 3 3-foot strands, thus equaling 9 feet of rope. Same as J. Davis uses. And as far as the format of the test goes, I really like this platform better than most I've seen, because he actually has a control from test to test to test, which is generally 3 foot or 3/4 inch sisal rope. That way, you're comparing apples to apples and so forth. And also lends a very good way to compare, steel to steel, knife geometry to knife geometry. And that's why I'm using it. Now, I'm not what you'd call a huge MTech fan. I do think that there are much better knives out there. However, for the price, they're hard to beat. I know some people disagree with me on that, but from what I've seen and owned and used, you get a lot of knife for, you know, $8-10, which I think this one was about $8. To tell you the truth, in the past month, I've had more problems with new Kershaws than I have with all my old MTechs, which is sort of pathetic. Of course, they all are the Chinese manufactured Kershaws, though. I will say that this geometry of the knife handle isn't extremely ergonomic. There's definitely a hot spot with the clip digging my finger, as you can see right there. The butt kind of digs in your palm, and the thumb wrap as well, just uncomfortable. No jimping, not contoured at all, just a straight plane. Alright, so let's check sharpness again. Once again, there does not appear to be any significant damage or deformation to the edge. Push cut, still sharp. Honestly, cannot say that I'm surprised. I know a lot of people do have issues with their MTech knives, but from what I've seen over the years, and bear in mind I haven't bought an MTech in probably 6-7 years at least, is that they're fantasy knives, you know, the ones that resemble things, race cars, hand grenades, stuff like that, or the truly fantasy, you know, weird buoy, stuff like that. They generally don't perform very well. The steel, you know, tends to perform much, well, not nearly as well. It's definitely a crappier steel, even though they all say, you know, 440. But the ones that actually resemble just, you know, kind of common folding knives typically perform pretty well. I've actually got a couple of models that I absolutely love. They're extremely ergonomic, cut extremely well, very thin behind the edge, excellent jimping, spider coat quality jimping. I'm trying to distribute the wear along most of the length of the blade, so we don't have a whole lot of damage in one spot and then a pristine edge on the rest. Because that, if we try to cut paper, you know, one spot will cut, one spot won't. We want to test the whole thing. I did leave a somewhat refined toothy edge on here. Only a few steps in sharpening this. I did a 200 grit diamond stone, 600 grit diamond stone, 2000 grit silicon carbide honing block, and then finally finished on a strop loaded with the Hand American 0.5 micron diamond spray. So it was truly a hair whittling edge when I started the test. Now this, it doesn't slice through the rope nearly as well as other knives I've tested, and that in part is due to the relatively thick area behind the edge. And I said 0.8 millimeters, and that's pretty thick. It may seem small, but it's rather thick compared to other knives in this class. So when I get done with this test, I'm actually going to take it to my grinder right there and redo the primary grind to a probably full flat grind, either full flat or 3/4 flat, and take the thickness right behind the edge to about 0.2 millimeters. So I'll turn this thing into an excellent slicer. After that, I'll put it on my wicked edge and give it a truly wicked edge. Alright, we finished 6 feet. Visual inspection of the edge. I see one little glint of light coming off of the edge. Still feels sharp. I guarantee you it still got the fire out of you. So let's check the sharpness. Oh, that's probably my fault. Need a new piece of paper. So it still cuts. Let's see. Still push cuts. Let's continue. Do our last 3 feet. This is getting to be extremely fatiguing on the hand at this point. Mainly the pocket clip digging into my palm. There we go. Starting a new piece of wood. Or a new section, rather. The channel was so deep there that it was actually pinching the rope on the blade. Making too much friction for me to overcome the cut through it. Now it's cutting much better because it is not pinching on the blade. But still, it's not nearly as good of a slicer as a couple of other knives I tested. Ontario Rat 1, Kershaw JYD 2.2, which is kind of impressive because that is a relatively thick blade right behind the edge. Tests like this will also be a test of sort of structural integrity and lock strength on some knives, because they're very cheaply made. And after all the force of trying to slice through this rope, you'll actually kind of wear some parts to form them, and you'll end up with quite a bit of blade play. But I can pretty much guarantee you after this test that this knife will still not have any blade play. You know, I honestly think it's slashing through a little bit easier now that the edge is toothed up a little bit. Yeah, definitely. Alright, we're done. And, well, that same spot I saw earlier is still there, but it seems to have almost like healed itself. I don't know if maybe I deformed it back in line with the rest of the edge or what, but definitely doesn't slice as cleanly That's when I started the test. But for a probably $8 knife, I'd say the results are quite impressive. So, push cut. Oh, hung up on that one. Push cut. Push cut. Not sharp enough to do that anymore. Let's see. Really don't have much hair on my arm, especially after my current tests. Get it on the blade. I hope you can see this. Maybe. There's hair on the blade. It actually did shave my arm. There's quite a bit of hair in this section right here. And wipe off the blade. Now this was sharpened freehand, but as far as freehand edges go, it is quite pretty. I really don't think that you'll be able to see any of the deformation on there, which means it's really not significant enough to see. So for a knife under $10, flipper doesn't work on this. Forgot that. Now, no blade play vertically. Horizontally or laterally, I mean, I can muscle some a little bit, but just holding regular, you really can't feel any blade play, especially vertically. So MTech's garbage or gold? At this point, I'd have to say gold, especially since you're not afraid to really thrash on them because they're so cheap. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for your time as always, and I will see you in the next video.